The first sound Lily Morgan made that morning wasn't a word. It was a gasp that caught in her throat like a fish hook, sharp and sudden and wrong in a way that her 6-year-old body understood before her mind could name it. She had been dreaming about dinosaurs, the scientifically accurate kind with feathers, not the Hollywood monsters that adults always got wrong. In her dream, a velociraptor was teaching her about pack hunting strategies, explaining in perfect English why cooperation mattered more than individual strength. She was about to ask about the Cretaceous climate when the sound pulled her out of the dream and dropped her into something worse. A wet, broken rattling, like someone trying to breathe through a pillow pressed against her face, like drowning on dry land. Lily's eyes snapped open. The living room was still dark, that blue-gray pre-dawn dark that makes familiar things look like strangers. The stack of library books she'd been reading before bed lay scattered on the floor where she'd knocked them off the couch. The Dinosaur Heresies, Women in Science, Advanced Mathematics for Young Minds, all face-down, spines cracked, forgotten. Mom, no answer. Just that sound again, closer now, coming from down the hallway. Lily swung her legs off the couch. Her feet found the cold hardwood floor, and she ran, not thinking, just moving the way prey animals move when they hear a predator in the brush. Her socks with the little yellow ducks on them made no sound as she sprinted down the narrow hallway of their rental house on Maple Creek Road. The door to her mother's bedroom stood half open. Lily pushed it the rest of the way and stopped. Sarah Morgan was on the floor between the bed and the wall, not sleeping, not resting. On the floor in her nursing scrubs from yesterday's shift, one arm twisted beneath her, the other reaching toward nothing. Her face had the color of old newspaper left too long in the sun. Gray, lifeless, wrong. But her chest was moving. Barely. Each breath a visible fight, her whole body shuddering with the effort of pulling air into lungs that didn't want it anymore. Mom, Mommy, Mom. Lily dropped to her knees beside her mother and grabbed her hand. The skin was cold, not winter morning cold, deep cold, stone cold, the kind of cold that shouldn't exist in a living person's hand when the heater is running and blankets are piled on the bed 3 feet away. Sarah's eyes opened, just slits, unfocused, swimming in and out of awareness like someone surfacing and sinking, surfacing and sinking. Lily, the word was barely there, a whisper that cost everything to make. Baby, call. Call who, Mommy? Call who? 911? Should I call 911? But Sarah's eyes had already closed again. Her hand went slack in Lily's grip. Lily stood there for exactly 4 seconds. She would count them later, over and over, trying to understand why she hadn't moved faster. 4 seconds of her brain trying to process what her body already knew. 4 seconds of being 6 years old and completely alone with the worst moment of her life so far. Then she ran. The kitchen phone hung on the wall beside the refrigerator, the old landline her mother kept because cell service in Millbrook was spotty and emergencies didn't care about signal bars. Lily grabbed it and punched 911 with hands that shook so badly she almost hit 912. The phone rang once, twice. 911. What's your emergency? My mom. She's on the floor. She can't breathe right. The dispatcher's voice was calm, too calm, like this was Tuesday and people called about their mothers dying every Tuesday before breakfast, and it was all very routine and manageable. Okay, sweetheart. I need you to stay calm. What's your address? Lily's mind went blank. Completely, utterly blank. She'd lived at this address for 3 years. She got mail here. She knew the numbers. But right now, standing in the kitchen with her mother dying 20 feet away, she couldn't remember a single digit. I don't know. That's okay. Can you look outside? Is there a number on your mailbox? Lily ran to the front window and pressed her face against the glass. Dawn was just starting to break enough light to see the rusty mailbox at the end of the driveway with numbers painted in peeling white. 472 Maple Creek Road. 472 Maple Creek Road in Millbrook. Yes. Good girl, you did great. Now I need you to go back to your mom. Don't try to move her. Help is on the way. Can you do that? How long? How long until they get here? The dispatcher paused. Just half a second, but Lily heard it. The calculation, the distance. The reality of living in a town where the nearest ambulance was based at the volunteer fire station 12 miles outside the city limits. About 14 minutes, honey. 14 minutes. Lily had learned in school that 14 minutes was 840 seconds. She had learned that a human could survive without oxygen for about 4 to 6 minutes before brain damage started. She had learned these things because she read books meant for kids 3 years older than her and retained everything she read with the kind of photographic precision that made teachers uncomfortable and her mother proud. She had not learned how to make 14 minutes feel like less than forever. Stay on the line with me, the dispatcher said. What's your name? Lily. Lily, you're being very brave. I'm going to stay right here with you until the paramedics arrive. Can you tell me if your mom is breathing? Lily walked back down the hallway, the phone cord stretching behind her like a leash. She knelt beside her mother and watched her chest rise and fall in shallow, irregular intervals. Yes, but it sounds bad. That's okay. As long as she's breathing, that's good. Does she have any medical conditions you know about? Lily thought about the pill bottles in the bathroom cabinet, the inhaler her mom used sometimes when she thought Lily wasn't watching, the way Sarah would wake up in the middle of the night, coughing so hard the wall shook. She gets infections in her lungs. She had one last month, but she said it went away. Has she been to a doctor recently? No. Why not? Lily looked at the kitchen table where unpaid bills sat in a stack held down by a coffee mug. She looked at the calendar on the wall with 2 jobs marked in different colored pens, the day shift and the night shift, that never seemed to end. We can't afford it, she said simply. The dispatcher was quiet for a moment. Then, the paramedics are 8 minutes out, Lily. You're doing great. 8 minutes. Lily took her mother's hand and held it with both of hers, trying to warm the cold out of it, trying to will her own body heat into her mother's failing system through simple contact and desperate hope. It's okay, Mom, she whispered. She didn't know if Sarah could hear her. She said it anyway. Help is coming. You're going to be okay. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm right here. Sarah's breathing didn't get better, but it didn't stop. And 8 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. The paramedics moved fast. Lily had imagined them as calm people, the kind of calm the dispatcher had, but these two were different. They were focused, laser focused, the kind of focus that told Lily this was serious, and they knew it, and they weren't going to waste a single second pretending otherwise. The younger one, a man with a red beard and kind eyes, introduced himself as Ryan. The older one, a woman with iron gray hair pulled back in a tight bun, said her name was Patricia, and then immediately started barking medical terminology at Ryan that Lily didn't understand but recognized as important. They got an oxygen mask on Sarah's face. They started an IV line. They checked vitals and compared numbers and spoke in shorthand code that was clearly a language unto itself. Patricia looked at Sarah's face for a long moment, then glanced at her partner. Something passed between them. Recognition, concern, something else Lily couldn't quite read. You know her, Ryan asked quietly. She trained me, Patricia said. 8 years ago, St. Mary's ER, best trauma nurse I ever worked with. Ryan's expression shifted. He looked at Sarah with new eyes, seeing not just a patient, but a colleague, a peer, someone who had stood where he stood and done what he did and now needed him to do it for her. What happened to her, he asked, not to Sarah, to the room. Injury, Patricia said, her hands never stopping their work. 3 years back, patient's family member attacked her, broken ribs, punctured lung. She came back after 6 months, but she wasn't the same. Couldn't handle the physical demands anymore. So she left medicine. Patricia's jaw tightened. She didn't have a choice. Ryan turned to Lily, who'd been standing frozen by the wall, watching everything, processing, everything, understanding, more than any 6-year-old should have to understand. Lily, is there another adult we can call a family member? A neighbor? Lily shook her head. It's just us. No dad, grandparents, anyone. My dad left when I was 3. My grandparents are dead. It's just us. Ryan crouched down to her level. Okay, then you're riding with us. Stay close to me, all right? Is my mom going to be okay? He looked at her, really looked at her. The way adults almost never look at children like they're actual people with actual intelligence who deserve actual answers. We're going to do everything we can for her. That's a promise. It wasn't the answer Lily wanted, but she understood even at 6 that it was the most honest answer he could give. So she nodded and went to the front door and put on her shoes. She tied the laces herself this time, concentrating hard, making sure they were tight and even. Then she followed them outside to the ambulance. St. Mary's Hospital sat on the eastern edge of Millbrook like a monument to good intentions and insufficient funding. 3 stories of beige brick and tinted windows, a parking lot full of potholes, a sign out front missing 2 letters, so it read, St. Marwise Hospital, in a way that would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. Lily had been here before, once when she was 4 and swallowed a penny, once when she was 5 and fell off the monkey bars at school and needed stitches. Both times her mother had been with her, strong, capable, the one asking questions and demanding answers and making sure everything was done right. This time was different. This time Lily was the one walking beside the gurney as they wheeled Sarah through the automatic doors. This time she was the one holding her mother's hand while monitors beeped and IV bags swayed, and Patricia called ahead on her radio with codes and numbers that meant something to someone, but not to Lily. They reached the emergency department entrance. The doors swung open and Patricia pushed the gurney through Ryan beside her, both of them moving with purpose toward the triage area. And then a nurse Lily had never seen before, a heavy-set woman with reading glasses on a beaded chain, stepped directly into their path and held up one hand. I'm sorry, honey, you can't come back here. Lily blinked. That's my mom. I understand, but this is a restricted area, only patients and staff. But my mom, you'll have to wait in the lobby, sweetheart. Someone will come get you when we have an update. Patricia looked back over her shoulder, her hand still on the gurney. She's alone, no other family. Can we make an exception? The nurse's expression didn't change. Hospital policy, no minors in the treatment area without a guardian. I'm her guardian, Lily said. The words came out harder than she intended. I'm the one who called 911. I'm the one who kept her alive until you got there. I'm her guardian. The nurse's face softened slightly, but her position didn't. I know this is scary, but the doctors need space to work. You'll be right out here. Someone will update you soon. Patricia squeezed Lily's shoulder. I'll make sure she's okay. I promise. Then the gurney rolled through the swinging doors and Lily was standing alone in a lobby that smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee and the particular despair of a place where bad things happen to good people every single day. She found a plastic chair and sat down and put her hands in her lap and stared at the floor. This was the first time in her life she had truly been alone. Not alone in her room, not alone in the backyard, alone in the way that matters. Alone in the sense that there was no one in the world who was specifically responsible for her right now. No one whose job it was to make sure she was okay. There was a fish tank against the far wall, one sad-looking orange fish swimming in circles. Lily watched it and counted the circles. She got to 47 before someone sat down in the chair next to her. It was a woman with two small children, boys maybe 3 and 5. The younger one was crying about something. The older one kept trying to steal his brother's crackers. The mother kept saying Jaden in that exhausted warning tone that mothers use when they're too tired for real discipline, but still need to maintain some semblance of order. Lily watched them like they were actors in a play, people in a story that had nothing to do with her, real but separate, existing in a parallel universe where problems were small and solvable, and no one was dying behind swinging doors. An hour passed. No one came through the doors to update her. No one asked if she was okay. No one seemed to notice a 6-year-old sitting alone in a hospital lobby at 7:30 in the morning on a Wednesday. Lily got up and walked to the reception desk. A woman with long acrylic nails and an alarming shade of purple was typing something on a computer behind a glass partition. Lily knocked on the glass, gently because her mother had taught her to be polite even when you were scared. The receptionist looked up. "Yes, honey. Can you tell me about my mom, Sarah Morgan?" The woman typed something, looked at her screen, typed again. "Someone will be out to update you when the doctor's available." "When will that be?" "I can't say exactly." "Can you say approximately?" The receptionist's nails clicked against the keyboard. She didn't look at Lily when she answered. "When the doctor's available." Lily went back to her chair. The second hour started. It was during the second hour that things went wrong in a different way. A man in a gray security uniform appeared in the lobby. Then another. Then a third. Lily didn't pay attention to them at first. They were just adults doing adult things, moving in the background like furniture that occasionally shifted positions. But then she heard them talking, not to her, about her. Unaccompanied minor. How long's she been sitting there? Since the ambulance came in 2 hours ago. No family with her. Says it's just her and the mom. We need to call social services. Lily's stomach dropped. She knew what social services was. A girl in her class, Maya, had been taken by social services after her dad went to jail. Maya had cried for 3 days before she disappeared from school entirely and never came back. The first guard, a tall man with a crew cut and a voice like gravel rolling down a metal chute, walked over to Lily's chair and looked down at her. "Hey kid, you got somebody coming to pick you up." Lily looked up at him. "My mom's here." "Right, but you need an adult with you, a guardian. Is there someone we can call?" "My mom is here," Lily repeated. "She's in the back. She's my guardian." The guard's jaw tightened. "Look, you can't just sit in a hospital lobby alone. There are rules." "I'm not alone. My mom is here." "Your mom's a patient. You need a different adult. Grandparents, uncle, aunt." "No." "No what?" "No, there's nobody. It's just me and my mom. That's it." The guard exchanged a look with one of his colleagues, a long look, the kind that says everything they're not saying out loud. "All right," he said, trying and failing to sound patient. "We're going to have to make some calls. You are going to need to come with me while we—" "I'm not leaving." "Kid, I'm not leaving," Lily said again, louder this time. "My mom is here and I'm not leaving her. You're making this difficult." "You're making it difficult." Lily stood up. She was small for 6. The guard towered over her. She didn't care. "My mom is sick. The doctors are helping her. I'm waiting for her." That's what you do when someone you love is sick. You wait. Something in the guard's expression shifted. Not sympathy exactly, more like the faint embarrassment of an adult being out-argued by a child. "I understand that, but—" "Then let me wait." "It's not that simple." "Yes, it is," Lily said. And then, because she had read books about civil disobedience and Rosa Parks and people who changed the world by refusing to move, "I'm not going anywhere." What happened in the next 45 minutes was a masterclass in bureaucratic cruelty that wasn't dramatic enough to be called evil but was damaging enough to scar. The guards called the hospital administration line. The administration line called the duty supervisor. The duty supervisor was in a meeting. A social worker was paged. The social worker was with another family. The social worker would be available in an hour. Lily was told to wait. She waited. Nobody updated her about her mother. She asked the receptionist again. The receptionist said someone would be out when the doctor was available. Lily went back to her chair. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten breakfast. She hadn't eaten because the moment she heard her mother's broken breathing, food had ceased to exist as a concept, but now her body was reminding her it still needed fuel, and there was nothing in the lobby except vending machines that required money she didn't have. She went to the water fountain, drank, came back, sat. The orange fish completed its 98th circle, and then the hospital's main doors slid open, and a blast of dry Arizona heat came in with it, and Sarah Morgan appeared. Not on a gurney, not in a wheelchair. On her own 2 feet, barely. One hand pressed against the wall for balance, the other clutching the IV pole they'd hooked her up to in the treatment room. The oxygen cannula was still in her nose. The hospital gown hung open in the back. She looked like death on temporary leave, but she was standing. Lily. Her voice was rough as broken glass, loud enough to carry across the lobby, loud enough that everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look. Lily, where are you? Lily was out of her chair and running before her brain caught up to her legs. She crashed into her mother's side and wrapped her arms around her waist and held on like she was the only thing keeping Sarah upright, which in that moment she was. Mommy, they said you were in the back. They wouldn't tell me anything. I know, baby, I know. Sarah's free arm came around Lily's shoulders. I heard you weren't being let in. I heard them talking about social services. So I signed myself out. You can't do that. The voice came from behind them. One of the guards, a different one this time. Shorter, stockier, with a clipboard and an expression that said he'd been looking for a reason to exercise authority all morning and had finally found it. Mrs. Morgan, you need to go back. You're still being evaluated. Sarah turned to look at him, slowly, like turning her head cost energy she couldn't spare. I signed the AMA form. I have the right to leave. Against medical advice. Against medical advice, Sarah agreed, because nobody would tell my 6-year-old daughter anything. Nobody sat with her. Nobody called me to say she was okay. And now you want to send her to social services while I'm 50 feet away behind a door. She has a mother. Her mother is standing right here. Mrs. Morgan, you're not medically stable. Then stabilize me in a room where my daughter can sit with me. That's not how this works. Then show me where it's written. Sarah's voice cracked, not from weakness, from fury. The particular fury of a mother who has spent 3 hours unconscious or semi-conscious and has just discovered her child was alone and scared while strangers debated policy. Show me the rule that says a sick mother has to be separated from her child who has no one else. Show me. Nobody showed her anything. Because the truth nobody in that lobby was willing to say out loud was that the rule didn't exist in writing. What existed was habit, convention, the path of least resistance. The slow, grinding assumption that people without money or connections or the right insurance just had to wait and be patient and accept whatever the system decided to give them. Mrs. Morgan? The guard tried again. My daughter is 6 years old, Sarah said. Each word fell like a hammer. She called 911 by herself. She stayed calm while I was dying on the floor. She gave the dispatcher our address. She did everything right. And you left her alone in this lobby for 3 hours like she didn't matter. Ma'am, we were following protocol. Sarah's voice dropped to something quiet and infinitely more dangerous. I know. I worked ER for 9 years. I know all about protocol, and I know the differences between protocol that protects people and protocol that just covers asses. This is the second kind. The guard opened his mouth, closed it, looked at his colleague. His colleague looked at the floor. "We're leaving," Sarah said. "I'll drive myself to Tucson if I have to, but I'm not leaving my daughter alone one more minute." She started toward the exit doors. Lily walked beside her, matching her mother's slow, unsteady pace. The IV pole rattled on its wheels. Sarah's hand shook against the metal shaft. They made it 10 feet before Sarah's knees gave out. She didn't fall, just sank. A controlled descent to the linoleum floor, her back against the wall, Lily catching her arm and going down with her. "It's okay," Sarah whispered, to herself, to Lily, to the universe that had brought them to this moment. "It's okay, just need a minute. Mommy, you have to go back inside." "I know. You're really sick." "I know, baby. So why?" "Because they wouldn't let me see you." Sarah opened her eyes and looked at her daughter. "And I needed to see you more than I needed anything else." Lily stared at her mother. Something moved across her face, something too complex for 6 years of living to process fully. The beginning of understanding what love actually costs. Not the fairy tale version, the real version. The two Joes and unpaid bills and coal floor version. She took her mother's hand. "What do we do now?" Sarah looked at the doors, looked at the guards, looked at her daughter. "We try again," she said. "We ask again. And this time we don't leave until they listen." They turned back toward the entrance. The three guards were already there, lined up in front of the automatic doors like a human wall. "Mrs. Morgan," it was clipboard guard again, "we can't allow you back into the facility until we've completed the paperwork for your readmission and confirmed appropriate care arrangements for the child." Sarah stared at him. "She's my child." "We understand that, but given the circumstances." "What circumstances?" "An unaccompanied minor in the lobby for an extended period. A patient who self-discharged against medical advice. These are flags in our system. We have to follow protocol." There was that word again. Protocol. Lily was starting to hate that word. "Your protocol," Sarah said slowly, "is keeping a sick woman out of the hospital. We're not keeping you out. We're asking you to wait while we complete the necessary." "She can barely stand up," Lily said. All three guards looked down at her. Lily looked back. Didn't blink. "She can barely stand up," she repeated. "And you're making her wait outside because of paperwork. Does your protocol have a rule about that?" Nobody answered. The door stayed closed. Sarah's breathing was getting worse again. Lily could hear it, that rattling sound, that wet, broken, drowning on dry land sound that had woken her up this morning in what felt like a different lifetime. "Please," Lily said. She said it to the guards. She said it to the people walking past. She said it to a businessman on his phone, to a woman juggling shopping bags, to a teenager with earbuds in, who glanced at them for half a second and kept walking. "Please, somebody. She needs help." Nobody stopped. Nobody came. And Sarah slid further down the wall, her eyes closing. Her breathing becoming something that sounded less like breathing and more like the prelude to not breathing at all. Lily knelt beside her mother, wrapped her arms around her, held on. "It's okay, Mommy, it's okay." "It's not okay," Sarah whispered. "No," Lily agreed, voice small and cracking. "It's not." They stayed like that, mother and daughter, on the ground outside a hospital that wouldn't let them in. While the morning sun climbed higher and the temperature started to rise and people walked past like they were invisible. Lily didn't cry. She'd learned from her mother that crying didn't help, that when things were bad, you put the fear in a box and sat on the lid and you kept going until you couldn't go anymore. She just held her mother and waited for what she didn't know, for someone, for anyone, for a miracle she didn't believe in but needed anyway. And then far down the street she heard it, low at first, distant, like thunder deciding whether to come closer or stay away. But it didn't stay away. It came, building, growing, a sound that was less a sound and more a physical presence in the air. 5 motorcycles, coming down Millbrook's Main Street towards St. Mary's Hospital, moving in tight formation, black leather and chrome and road dust and absolute certainty. Lily watched them come. She didn't know what they were, didn't know if they were help or just more people who would drive past. But something in her chest, some stubborn 6-year-old thing that refused to give up completely, whispered, "Wait, just wait." The bikes turned into the hospital parking lot. The engines cut one by one, and a man got off the lead bike. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar that ran from his jaw to his collar, and eyes that had seen too much of the world's ugliness to be shocked by any of it. He pulled off his riding gloves one finger at a time, looked at the 3 guards blocking the doors, looked at Sarah on the ground, looked at Lily holding her mother like she was the only thing keeping her tethered to the earth. And Lily, without thinking, without deciding, stood up and walked toward him. She stopped 3 feet from him, looked up. He looked down. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Lily said in a voice that was small but absolutely clear, "They won't let my mommy in." The man stared at her. Something moved behind his eyes, something old and painful and still bleeding. "How long?" he asked. "A long time," Lily said. "She got sick. I called 911. They brought her here. Then they wouldn't let me see her. Then she came out to find me and they won't let her back in, and she's really sick and nobody will help." The man looked past her to Sarah, looked at the guards, looked back at Lily. "What's your name?" "Lily." "My name's Marcus." He didn't offer his hand, just said it, flat, like a fact. "Stay right here." He walked past her. The other 4 riders fell in behind him without a word, moving together like parts of the same organism, not aggressive, not performing, just committed to a direction they'd already decided on. They stopped 4 feet from the guards. The one with the clipboard held his ground, physically held it, shoulders back, chin up. The stance of a man reminding himself he has authority because he's not sure anyone else will recognize it. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Marcus looked at him. "That woman on the ground, she a patient here?" "That's a private matter." "I'm not asking about HIPAA. I'm asking if she came here because she's sick." The guard's jaw worked. "She self-discharged against medical." "Because you separated her from her kid," said one of the other bikers. A stocky man with forearms like bridge cables and a voice like a cement mixer. He said it without heat, just factually, which made it land harder. "Sir, I'm going to need you to—" "We're not doing anything," Marcus said. "We're asking a question. There's a woman on the ground outside a hospital. She needs medical attention. Why is she on the ground instead of inside?" "As I said, there are protocols." "Name one." The guard blinked. "I'm sorry." "Name one protocol, one specific rule by name from your facility's policy documentation that says a sick patient can't be readmitted while paperwork is being processed." Silence. The guard looked at his colleagues. The colleague to his left studied the ground like it held answers. The one to his right found something fascinating in the middle distance. "That's what I thought," Marcus said. He turned around, walked back to where Sarah was sitting, crouched down in front of her, moving with the careful economy of a man who's carried wounded before and knows exactly how to do it without causing more damage. "Sarah." He said her name like he already knew her, like she was a person who deserved to be addressed as such, not a situation or a protocol or a flag in somebody's system. "My name's Marcus. Can you hear me?" Sarah's eyes opened, took a moment to focus. "Yeah, I hear you. We're going to get you inside. Can you put your arm around my neck if I help you up?" "I can try." "That's enough." He got an arm under her shoulders and stood in one smooth motion, bringing her with him. Sarah gasped, grabbed his shoulder with both hands. He steadied, didn't stagger, just stood there like a foundation that wasn't going anywhere. Lily was at her mother's other side instantly, her small hand finding Sarah's arm. They turned toward the doors. The three guards were still there. This was the moment. The one that would be filmed by someone in the parking lot and uploaded within the hour. The one that would change everything. Marcus walked toward the entrance with Sarah Morgan on his arm and Lily Morgan at his side and the four other bikers in formation behind him. He walked the way weather moves, not aggressive, not performing, just committed, like the direction had already been decided, and the only question was what would get out of the way. He stopped one pace from clipboard guard. Move! Not a shout, not a threat, just a word, placed in the air between them with the absolute unshakable weight of a man who had decided. The guard held for 3 seconds. 3 full seconds of trying to remember why he had authority, why the rules mattered, why this was a battle worth fighting. Then he stepped to the left. The other 2 stepped with him. The automatic doors slid open, and Marcus Sterling carried Sarah Morgan through them while her daughter walked beside her, and 5 motorcycles sat cooling in the parking lot, and somewhere in the distance a phone camera kept recording. What happened inside St. Mary's Hospital happened fast once the right person used the right voice in the right way. Marcus walked Sarah directly to the reception desk. The woman with the purple acrylic nails looked up, saw a 6'2" man in a Hell's Angels vest, carrying a semi-conscious woman with an IV line still trailing from her arm, and her expression went through several rapid calculations. This woman came in by ambulance this morning for a respiratory emergency, Marcus said. His voice was level, factual, the voice of someone stating simple truths that would not be argued with. She self-discharged to find her daughter. She needs to be readmitted now. The receptionist stared at him. Now, he said again, not louder, just again. She picked up her phone. Within 4 minutes, a nurse appeared with a wheelchair. Within 6 minutes, a doctor had been paged. Within 8 minutes, Sarah was back behind the triage doors, this time with a second chair brought out and placed right beside the entrance, where Lily could see through the small window and the door could see her. The nurse who brought the chair out, a young woman with dark braids and a stethoscope looped around her neck, crouched down to Lily's level. Your mom is going to be right on the other side of that door, she said. We're going to take good care of her, and you're going to sit right here, and I'm going to check on you every 15 minutes. Deal? Lily nodded. Her throat was too tight to speak. What do you need right now? Are you hungry? Lily thought about it. Her stomach had been a clenched fist for hours. But now that someone was actually asking, actually paying attention, it unclenched slightly. A little bit, she admitted. I'll get you a sandwich. Peanut butter, okay? Yeah. The nurse stood up. Then she looked past Lily toward the lobby. Lily followed her gaze. Marcus and his 4 brothers were still there. They hadn't sat down. They weren't pacing. They were simply standing spread loosely across the waiting area, arms crossed. Watching, not threatening, not performing, just present in a way that communicated without a single word that something had changed in this room and would not be changing back. The 3 guards had retreated to a far corner. Clipboard guard was talking quietly into his radio. The shorter one who'd confronted Sarah earlier looked like he was trying to become one with the wall. Lily looked at Marcus. He was already looking at her. He gave her a single nod. She looked away first. Not because she was afraid, but because something in her chest had done something unexpected. Something that felt dangerously close to wanting to cry, but a different kind of cry than she'd been doing all morning. The kind that came from relief instead of fear. She pressed her lips together and stared at the fish tank. The orange fish was still swimming in circles. She almost laughed. 45 minutes later, a doctor came through the triage doors. A woman in her 50s with short gray hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. She looked around the lobby, spotted Lily, and walked over. Lily Morgan. Lily stood up so fast she almost knocked over her chair. Yes, is my mom okay? The doctor smiled, small, tired, but genuine. I'm Dr. Reyes, your mom is stable. She said it first, before anything else. The thing Lily needed to hear most. She has a serious lung infection. We're treating it with IV antibiotics, and she's responding well. She's going to need to stay for a few days, but she is stable. Lily's legs went out from under her. Not literally, but almost. She sat back down very suddenly, and her hands went to her face and she made a sound that was neither crying nor laughing, but something in between. The sound of pressure releasing after being held too long at too high a tension. Dr. Reyes sat on the edge of the chair beside her. She's asking for you. We're going to get her set up in a room and you can be with her, okay? Lily nodded behind her hands. You did good today, Dr. Reyes said quietly. Calling 911, staying with her. Being here, that matters. I didn't do anything, Lily said, her voice muffled. I just asked for help and nobody listened. Dr. Reyes glanced past Lily toward Marcus. A look passed between them. Brief, adult, acknowledging something Lily only half understood. Some people listened, Dr. Reyes said. That's what matters. Before Lily followed Dr. Reyes through the triage doors, she turned around. Marcus was standing now. His four brothers had drifted closer, all five of them lined up in the lobby of St. Mary's Hospital, looking profoundly out of place in a way that somehow made the lobby look like the thing that didn't belong. Lily walked back to Marcus. She didn't think about it. She just did. She hugged him, arms around his waist because that was as high as she could reach, and pressed her face against the worn leather of his vest. He smelled like road and engine oil and something else she couldn't name. Something that felt like safety even though she'd only known him for an hour. She held on for 3 seconds, 4, 5. His hand came up slowly, carefully, and rested on the back of her head. Just for a moment. Thank you, she said into his jacket. Go be with your mom, he said. She pulled back and looked at him. Will you still be here when I come back out? Something moved across his face. For a while. She nodded. That was enough. She turned and followed Dr. Reyes through the doors. What Lily didn't know, what nobody told her until much later, was that the man in the parking lot who filmed the confrontation at the entrance wasn't a random bystander. His name was John Pratt. He was 46 years old. He lived 3 streets over from Lily and Sarah's rental house. And 2 years ago, his wife had died outside this exact hospital while security guards debated whether her insurance card was valid enough to allow admission. John had accepted a settlement, $80,000 and a non-disclosure agreement. He'd taken it because he had 2 kids to feed and a mortgage he couldn't pay and grief that was eating him alive. He'd regretted it every single day since. When he saw Sarah on the ground and Lily asking for help and people walking past, something in him broke open. All the regret and rage and powerless grief of the past 2 years came pouring out, and he grabbed his phone and he recorded. And when the video hit 30 seconds, he uploaded it. And then he got in his car and drove to the office of a lawyer he'd been too afraid to call 2 years ago. By the time Lily was sitting beside her mother's hospital bed holding her hand, while Sarah slept under clean white sheets with antibiotics dripping steadily into her arm, the video had been viewed 400,000 times. By the time Marcus Sterling left the hospital that evening and climbed back on his bike, it had been viewed 1.2 million times. By the time the sun set on Millbrook, Arizona, it had been viewed 2.8 million times and was climbing. And in Phoenix, in a small law office above a Korean restaurant, a 68-year-old attorney named Daniel Cross watched the video for the 3rd time and then picked up his phone and made a call. The next morning, when Lily woke up in the chair beside her mother's bed with a blanket someone had draped over her during the night, there was a reporter in the lobby. Her name was Kate Romano. She was 26 years old and worked for the Millbrook Courier, a newspaper with a circulation of 4,200 and a reputation for covering city council meetings and high school sports and not much else. Kate had gotten into journalism because she still believed, despite everything that one story told correctly could shift something. She'd been writing a piece about road work on Highway 87 when her phone lit up with the video. She'd watched it 4 times. Then she grabbed her jacket and her notepad and driven to St. Mary's. Now she was sitting across from Gerald Phelps, the hospital's head of administration, a man who had the particular look of someone who'd been in risk management for 20 years and could smell a liability from 3 buildings away. Gerald was giving her the standard response: the hospital's commitment to patient care, the complexity of security protocols, the importance of not rushing to judgment based on incomplete information from social media. Kate nodded, wrote it all down, let him talk. And when he was done, she said, "So your position is that the security staff acted within protocol. Our position is that all parties were doing their best in a complex situation. 3 contractors blocked a patient's readmission for over 40 minutes while she was visibly in medical distress. As I said, the situation was complex. She was on the ground outside your facility, Mr. Phelps." Gerald paused. "We are reviewing the incident. Can you tell me the names of the contractors? That information is, are they hospital employees or third-party contractors?" A slightly longer pause. "Third party. Who's the contracting company?" Gerald looked at her notepad like it was a weapon, which in Kate's hands it was. "I need to verify that information before—" "I'll wait," Kate said pleasantly. He excused himself. Kate looked across the lobby. 4 of the 5 Hells Angels who'd been there yesterday were back, sitting in plastic chairs, not causing trouble, just present. She walked over. "You were here yesterday," she said, "when it happened." One of them, an older man with sun-weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much, looked up. "We were." "Can I ask you some questions?" "You can ask," he said. "Can't promise we'll answer." "Fair enough." Kate opened her notepad. "Why did you stop?" The man looked at the one next to him. The other one shrugged. "You ever drive past something and know you can't keep driving?" the older man asked. "Yes." "Then you already know why." Kate wrote that down. "The man who went inside with the woman yesterday, Marcus, where is he?" "Upstairs," one of the others said, "with the family." Kate looked toward the elevator. "Has he done this before? This kind of thing?" The older man considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "Hawk doesn't do things for show. That's all I'll tell you." "Hawk, road name, Marcus Sterling if you need the legal one." Kate wrote it down, then she said, "The video's at 4 million views as of an hour ago." The lobby went quiet. 4 million, the stocky one said, and climbing. "They absorbed that." Then the older one said, just, "Huh. Does that bother you?" Kate asked carefully. He looked at her. 4 million people watched a little girl ask for help. How many of them stopped? Kate didn't have an answer for that. Neither did he. That was his point. Upstairs in room 347, Sarah was awake. Lily was sitting in the chair beside the bed with a stack of books the nurse with the braids had brought from somewhere, reading about the Cretaceous period, while her mother dozed in and out of consciousness. There was a knock at the door. Marcus came in, moving carefully the way large men do in small spaces designed for sick people and worried families. Lily looked up. "Hi." "Hi yourself." He pulled a chair from against the wall and sat down, the plastic creaking under his weight. "How's she doing?" "Better. The doctor said the antibiotics are working." Sarah's eyes opened, still foggy but clearer than yesterday. "Marcus." "Hey, Sarah." "You came back." "Said I would." She managed a small smile. "Most people don't do what they say." "I'm not most people." "No," she agreed quietly. "You're not." Lily watched this exchange with the careful attention of a child who's learned to read adults by necessity. There was something in the way they talked to each other, something gentle and a little bit sad. The nurse said there's a reporter downstairs, Sarah said. Kate Romano, Millbrook Courier. What does she want? To write the story. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then, do I want that? That's not for me to say. I'm asking anyway. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The video's at 4 million views. National news is picking it up. If you talk to Kate, you control some of the narrative. If you don't, someone else will write it anyway and you don't get a say. What if I just want it to go away? It won't, he said gently. Not now. Sarah looked at Lily. What do you think, baby? Lily set down her book. I think the next mom who has to sit outside shouldn't have to sit there as long as you did. Sarah's breath caught. She looked at her daughter for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus. Send the reporter up. Kate Romano came up 20 minutes later with her notepad and a recording app on her phone that she asked permission to use before turning on, which Sarah appreciated. She sat in the third chair, the one Marcus vacated, and moved to stand by the window. Before I ask anything official, Kate said, how are you feeling? Sarah looked at the ceiling, laughed once sharp and humorless. I have a serious lung infection. I'm 3 months behind on rent. I have maybe $14 in my checking account. And my daughter spent 3 hours terrified in a hospital lobby yesterday. I've had better weeks. It's Thursday, Lily said. I've had better Thursdays. Kate smiled briefly. Then she opened her notepad. Tell me about yesterday morning from the beginning. So Sarah told her. She told her about working 2 jobs since the injury that ended her nursing career, about the diner where she pulled morning shifts 5 days a week and the call center work she did from home in the evenings, taking insurance inquiries until midnight sometimes. She told her about the lung infection building for 3 weeks, about not treating it because the urgent care copay was money she didn't have, and the antibiotics would be more money she didn't have, and she kept thinking she'd get better on her own. She told her about waking up on the floor with her daughter's face above her and not knowing how she'd gotten there. She told all of it without flinching, in the flat, factual voice of someone who'd made peace long ago with the gap between the life they'd planned and the life they were living. Lily sat and listened to her mother tell their story and felt something she couldn't quite name, something that lived in the space between shame and pride. The complicated truth of surviving in a world that wasn't built for people like them. Lily, Kate said, turning to her, can I ask you something? Lily looked at her mother. Sarah nodded. When you were outside asking people for help and they kept walking by, what did that feel like? Lily thought about it, seriously, the way she thought about questions that deserved real answers. Like I was invisible, she said, but not in a magic way, in a bad way. Like they could see me but decided I wasn't worth stopping for. Kate wrote that down slowly. And when Marcus stopped, Lily glanced at him. He was looking out the window deliberately away from this conversation. Like I stopped being invisible, she said. Like someone finally saw that we were real. Kate finished writing, set down her pen. Marcus, I know you don't want to be the story. I'm not the story, he said without turning around. The internet disagrees. The video's at 6 million views. He turned around at that, not impressed, bothered. That's 6 million people who watched a little girl get ignored, and one man who didn't. I'm not the only person who could have stopped. I'm just the one who did. That's not heroism. That's bare minimum humanity. Kate wrote that down too. If I write this piece, she said, what do you want people to take from it? Marcus looked at Sarah, at Lily, at the hospital room that represented everything broken about a system that was supposed to care for people. I want them to understand that what happened here isn't rare, he said. It happens every day, in every hospital, in every city. People fall through cracks we pretend don't exist. And we only notice when someone films it and it goes viral. He paused. If 6 million people want to watch, fine. but tell them to look around in their own towns, at their own hospitals, at who's sitting outside asking for help right now while they're watching videos. Kate's pen moved across the page. When she looked up, her eyes were different, sharper. That's going in the piece, she said. 2 hours after Kate left, Marcus got a phone call. He stepped into the hallway to take it, came back 5 minutes later with an expression Lily couldn't quite read. That was Daniel Cross, he said to Sarah. He's a lawyer in Phoenix. I can't afford a lawyer. You won't need to. He works pro bono for cases like this. Cases like what? Medical negligence, patient rights violations. He's been following the video. He wants to talk to you about filing a suit. Sarah was quiet. Against who? The hospital, the security company, maybe both. I don't want to. I know, Marcus said, but Meridian Security has contracts with 17 hospitals across Arizona. If they did this to you, they've done it to others. Daniel's been tracking cases for 5 years. You could be the one that breaks it open. Lily looked up from her book. How many others? Marcus looked at her. We don't know yet. But you think a lot? Yeah, kid, I think a lot. Sarah stared at the ceiling. The monitor beeped. Once, twice, 3 times. What would it cost me? She asked. Not money, the other cost. Marcus understood the question. Your name in the news, Lily's name in the news, scrutiny, pressure. Meridian will push back hard. They'll try to make us look bad. Probably. Sarah looked at her daughter. Lily, come here. Lily climbed onto the bed and curled up beside her mother. Sarah wrapped an arm around her. If we do this, Sarah said quietly, it gets harder before it gets better. People will say things about us, about me. They'll dig into our lives. It won't be private anymore. It's already not private, Lily said. 6 million people watched us. This would be different. Lily thought about it. The next mom, she said finally, the one who comes after us. If we don't do this, does she still have to sit outside? Sarah's chest rose and fell. Maybe. Then we should do it. Sarah looked at Marcus. He looked back, said nothing, just waited. Tell Daniel Cross I'll talk to him, Sarah said. Marcus nodded once. I'll make the call. He left the room. Lily stayed curled against her mother, listening to her heartbeat through the hospital gown. Are you scared? She asked. Terrified, Sarah admitted. Me too. You know what your grandmother used to tell me. What? Being scared and being brave aren't at opposites. Being scared and doing it anyway is what brave means. Lily absorbed that. Was Grandma brave? The bravest person I ever knew. Braver than you, Sarah smiled into her daughter's hair. Much braver than me. I don't think so, Lily said. I think you're the bravest person ever. The monitor beeped. Sarah closed her eyes, held her daughter, let herself just for a moment believe it might be true. Downstairs, Marcus stood in the parking lot with his phone to his ear. Daniel Cross. Mr. Cross, this is Marcus Sterling. We spoke an hour ago about the Sarah Morgan case. Marcus, please call me Daniel. What did she say? She'll talk to you. There was a pause on the line. Then good, that's good. When can I come up? Give her a day to stabilize. She's still on IV antibiotics. Of course, Marcus, I need you to know something. What's that? I've been waiting for this case for 5 years. Sarah and Lily, they're not the first, but they might be the ones who finally make people listen. Marcus leaned against his bike. Why 5 years? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. My granddaughter, Emma, she was 16, appendicitis. We brought her to a hospital in Phoenix. Security guard insisted we wait for insurance verification before they'd admit her. By the time they did, it had ruptured. Marcus closed his eyes. I'm sorry. She survived. Barely. But she shouldn't have had to be barely. She should have been seen immediately. His voice was steady, but the pain underneath was a live wire. I've been building a case against Meridian ever since, collecting incidents, documentation, testimony, but I needed the right moment, the right catalyst. And you think this is it? 6 million views and climbing the national news picking it up. A 6-year-old girl who spoke truth to power without even realizing what she was doing. Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. Marcus, this is more than the right moment. This is the reckoning. Marcus looked back at the hospital, at the building where his daughter had died 3 years ago, because a security guard had followed protocol instead of compassion. He hadn't told Sarah that part yet, hadn't told Lily. He would, eventually, when the time was right. But for now he just said, then let's make it count. We will, Daniel said. I promise you we will. Marcus ended the call, stood there in the Arizona sun with the weight of 3 years of grief sitting on his shoulders like a passenger he had never been able to shake. One of his brothers, the one called Tex, came out of the hospital and walked over. You good? No, Marcus said honestly. You gonna be good? Marcus thought about Sophie, about Sarah, about Lily, about all the people who'd sat outside hospitals asking for help while the world decided they weren't worth the interruption. Eventually, he said, Tex nodded, didn't push, just stood there beside him in the kind of companionable silence that brothers don't need to explain. Inside, Lily was reading her book about dinosaurs. Sarah was sleeping. The monitor beeped. And somewhere in the vast network of the internet, a video climbed toward 8 million views, and the machinery of justice, slow and grinding and imperfect as it was, began to turn. Daniel Cross arrived on Saturday morning driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic with 200,000 miles on it and a briefcase that had cost more than the car. He was shorter than Marcus expected, maybe 5'7" in shoes, compact, with wire-rimmed glasses and the particular energy of someone who'd spent decades being underestimated and had learned to use it as a weapon. He shook Sarah's hand, then Lily's, treated them both like people, not cases. Before we start, he said, sitting in the chair beside Sarah's bed, I want you to understand what you're signing up for. This won't be easy. Meridian Security has deep pockets and powerful friends. They'll investigate you. They'll look for anything they can use to discredit your story. Past relationships, financial history, medical records, anything. Sarah absorbed that. Will they find anything? Probably not anything that matters, but they'll try to make it matter. A late rent payment becomes financial irresponsibility. Working 2 jobs becomes neglecting your child. They'll twist everything. So why do it? Daniel leaned forward. Because in 5 years of tracking Meridian, I've documented 41 complaints across 17 hospitals. 14 of those involved delay or denial of emergency care. 7 resulted in serious harm to patients. He paused. 3 resulted in deaths. The room went very still. 3 people died, Lily asked quietly. Daniel looked at her, didn't talk down, just answered. Yes, because of the security guards. Because of policies that put protocol over people. Sarah's jaw tightened. Who were they? Daniel opened his briefcase, pulled out 3 folders, set them on the bed. Janet Morrison, 42, Phoenix, diabetic emergency. Security insisted on insurance verification before admission. She went into a coma in the parking lot, died 4 days later. He opened the second folder. Robert Walsh, 67, Tucson, stroke symptoms. Security said the ER was at capacity and he should try urgent care. He did. By the time he got there, it was too late. The third folder. Sophie Sterling, 12 years old, Millbrook, severe asthma attack. Security guard named Brett Hawkins delayed her admission by 47 minutes, citing protocol about unaccompanied minors. His voice didn't waver. She died in the ambulance on the way to Tucson. Lily went very still. Sophie Sterling. Marcus's daughter, Daniel said quietly. He didn't tell us, Sarah whispered. I doubt he talks about it much. Lily looked at the closed door, looked back at Daniel. The same guard, Brett Hawkins. Yes, he's the one who, yes. Something terrible settled into Lily's chest. A cold, heavy understanding that Marcus hadn't stopped Wednesday because he was heroic or noble or any of the other words people were using online. He'd stopped because he knew exactly what would happen if he didn't. He'd lived it. Where is he now? Sarah asked. Brett Hawkins. Still working for Meridian, still assigned to St. Mary's. Still, Sarah repeated, the word tasted like acid. 3 years later, after what he did, he's still here. The hospital claimed Sophie's death was due to medical complications, not security delays. Meridian backed up their employee. There was a quiet settlement with Marcus's ex-wife, NDA attached. The story died. Until now, Sarah said. Until now. Lily slid off the bed. I need to go find Marcus. Lily, Sarah started. But Lily was already out the door. She found him in the parking lot sitting on his motorcycle staring at nothing. She walked up to him. He looked down at her. Daniel told you, he said, not a question. Yeah, I should have told you myself. Why didn't you? Marcus thought about it. Because it's not about me. This is your story, your mom's story. I didn't want to make it about. Your daughter died, Lily said. Her voice was small but absolutely clear. And the same man who killed her tried to kill my mom. I don't know if killed is. Yes, it is. Lily's hands balled into fists at her sides. He delayed Sophie, and she died. He delayed my mom, and if you hadn't been there, she would have died too. That's the same thing. That's killing. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Yeah, it is. So why isn't he in jail? Because the system protects itself, kid. That's what it does. That's not fair. No, Marcus agreed. It's not. Lily stood there in the parking lot with the morning sun beating down and something inside her that had been built from library books and her mother's quiet strength and 6 years of learning to read the world's unfairness crystallized into something harder. We're going to change it, she said. Marcus looked at her. Yeah, Daniel's going to help us. My mom said yes. We're going to make it so this never happens again. That's a big goal. Sophie deserves it, Lily said. And my mom deserves it. And all the other people who got hurt deserve it. Marcus's expression did something complicated. He reached out and put his hand on top of Lily's head. Just for a second. You're right, he said. They do. By Monday morning, Kate Romano's article had run. Not just in the Millbrook Courier. The Associated Press had picked it up. Then CNN. Then MSNBC. By Tuesday, it was everywhere. The article did something that the video alone couldn't. It gave context, it gave names, it connected Sarah and Lily's story to Sophie's, to Janet Morrison's, to Robert Walsh's. It laid out in clear, devastating detail the pattern of Meridian Security's policies across Arizona. And it asked one simple question that nobody could answer. Why had nothing changed? The response was immediate. The Arizona Department of Health Services opened an investigation into Meridian's practices. The state attorney general's office announced they were reviewing the company's contracts with public hospitals. 3 law firms filed class action complaints, and Sarah's hospital room phone started ringing. Other families, other victims, people who've been paid off or silenced or too scared to speak up. They called Sarah. They told her their stories. They thanked her for being brave enough to go public. One of them was a woman named Patricia Moore. Her voice shook when she spoke. My son, Michael, he was 23, epileptic. He had a seizure in a Meridian contracted hospital lobby in Phoenix. The guards said he thought Michael was drunk and called security instead of medical. By the time they realized, she couldn't finish. Sarah closed her eyes. I'm so sorry. It was 4 years ago. They paid us, made us sign papers saying we wouldn't talk. I took the money because I had medical bills and I couldn't fight them, and I just wanted it to be over. You don't have to apologize for surviving. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Your lawyer, Daniel Cross, do you think he'd talk to me? I think he'd be honored to talk to you. I still have the settlement documents and the medical records. I kept everything. Sarah sat up straighter. Patricia, you should call him right now. Do you have a pen? She gave Patricia the number. Hung up, looked at Lily. How many people do you think there are? Lily asked. Like Patricia. I don't know, baby. A lot. Probably a lot. Lily thought about that. Then we're not just fighting for us anymore. No, Sarah said, I guess we're not. The next call came from Brett Hawkins. Not directly. Through his lawyer, a man named Richard Vance, who had the particular smarmy charm of someone who'd spent his career finding loopholes and calling it justice. He was offering a settlement, $500,000, in exchange for Sarah dropping any potential legal action and signing an NDA. 500,000, Sarah repeated into the phone. Her voice was flat. It's a generous offer, Mrs. Morgan, for my silence, for a resolution to an unfortunate situation that benefits everyone involved, including the guard who's killed at least 2 people. Vance paused. I'm not sure where you're getting that information. From Daniel Cross, from the families, from the medical records. Mrs. Morgan, I strongly advise you to consider this offer seriously. Litigation is expensive, time-consuming, stressful, especially for someone in your financial situation. Sarah looked at Lily, at her daughter who'd called 911 at 6 years old and hadn't stopped fighting since. Tell your client, she said slowly, that I'm not interested in his money. I'm interested in making sure he never does this again. Mrs. Morgan, we're done here. She hung up. Lily was staring at her. That was a lot of money. It was. We need money. We do. But you said no. I did. Why? Sarah pulled her daughter onto the bed beside her. Because some things cost more than money, baby. Sophie Sterling cost more. Michael Moore cost more. The next kid who sits in that lobby cost more. Lily leaned against her mother. I'm proud of you. Sarah's breath caught. Yeah. They sat like that for a while, until there was a knock at the door. Marcus came in. His expression was different, harder. Brett Hawkins just filed a countersuit, he said, against me. Assault and intimidation. Sarah sat up. What? He's claiming I threatened him in the lobby Wednesday. That I used my size and my club affiliation to coerce him into stepping aside. That's not what happened. I know that. You know that. But his lawyer's spinning it as an armed gang forcing their way into a hospital. Armed, Lily said. You didn't have any weapons. Doesn't matter. The vest is enough. The bikes are enough. The fact that I didn't smile politely and ask nicely is enough. He sat down heavily. This is what they do. They flip it. Make the victim into the aggressor. So what do we do? Sarah asked. We fight it. Daniel's already drafting a response. But I need you to know this is going to get uglier before it gets better. We know, Lily said. Marcus looked at her. Yeah, I think you do. The hearing was set for 6 weeks later. Federal court in Phoenix, Daniel Cross versus Meridian Security, St. Mary's Hospital, and Brett Hawkins individually. The media attention was enormous. Camera crews camped outside the courthouse. Sarah had to hire private security just to get Lily to and from school without being photographed. The scrutiny was exactly as brutal as Daniel had warned. Someone dug up Sarah's old employment records from the ER, found a disciplinary note from 7 years ago about a charting error, made it sound like she'd been fired for incompetence instead of leaving due to injury. Someone found out Lily's father was in prison for drug possession, wrote an article about broken homes and cycles of poverty. Someone posted their rental address online. Sarah had to move them to a motel. Through it all, Marcus and his brothers were there, not in a showy way, just present, making sure Sarah's car always started, making sure no one followed Lily, making sure the media stayed at a distance. One night, sitting in the motel room while Lily did homework on the bed, Sarah asked Marcus the question she'd been avoiding. Why are you really doing this? I told you, not the public answer, the real one. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When Sophie died, I fell apart. Completely. Lost my marriage. Lost custody. Lost myself. I spent a year drinking and writing and trying to outrun the fact that I wasn't there when she needed me. You couldn't have known. I could have been there anyway. I could have been the kind of father who was just there. He looked at her. I can't get that back. But when I saw Lily on that sidewalk, I saw a chance to do it right this time, to be the person who shows up. Sarah reached across the small space between them and took his hand. You did show up, she said. You saved her. You saved me. I couldn't save Sophie. No, but you're saving everyone who comes after her. That matters, Marcus. That matters more than you know. He looked at their joined hands, didn't pull away. Your daughter would be proud of you, Sarah said quietly. Marcus's eyes closed. I hope so. The day before the hearing, Daniel called with news. Brett Hawkins wants to flip. What? He's willing to testify against Meridian. Full disclosure of their policies, quotas, training protocols. Everything. Sarah felt her heart rate spike. Why would he do that? Because Meridian just threw him under the bus. Their lawyers filed documents yesterday claiming Hawkins acted independently against company policy. They're setting him up to take the fall alone. So he's saving himself. Yes, but that doesn't make his testimony less valuable. Can we trust him? I don't know. But I know we can verify everything he says. And if even half of it is true, Meridian is done. Sarah looked at Lily. What do you think? Lily looked up from her book, thought about it seriously. I think bad people can still tell the truth, especially when it helps them. Daniel laughed over the phone. Your daughter's going to make a hell of a lawyer someday. The hearing lasted 3 days. Brett Hawkins testified for 7 hours. He confirmed that Meridian had unofficial quotas for managed admissions designed to reduce emergency room overcrowding and increase patient turnover. He confirmed that guards were trained to use discretionary delays for patients without premium insurance or who appeared to be low priority. He confirmed that the company kept 2 sets of records, official logs, that showed compliance and internal metrics that tracked how many admissions each guard successfully delayed. He confirmed that he'd used these tactics on Sophie Sterling, on Janet Morrison, on at least 9 other patients that resulted in serious harm. When Daniel asked him why, his answer was simple and devastating. Because I was told it was policy, and I wanted to keep my job. The courtroom was silent. Then Daniel asked the question everyone had been waiting for. Did anyone at Meridian ever tell you that a patient had died as a result of your delays? Brett Hawkins looked at the Meridian CEO sitting 3 rows back. Then he looked at the judge. Yes, I was told about Sophie Sterling 6 months after she died. My supervisor said it was a medical complication, not my fault. He gave me a bonus for handling a difficult situation professionally. The courtroom erupted. The judge called for order. And Marcus Sterling, sitting beside Sarah in the gallery, closed his eyes and let the tears come. The verdict came down 2 weeks later. Meridian Security was found liable for negligence, wrongful death, and systematic violation of patient rights. The company was fined $47 million. Their contracts with all 17 hospitals were terminated. Brett Hawkins was sentenced to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter in Sophie Sterling's death and criminal negligence in 6 other cases. And the judge ordered the creation of new federal guidelines for security protocols in medical facilities. They called it Sophie's Law. Sarah and Lily were in the courtroom when the verdict was read. Marcus was beside them. Daniel was at the plaintiff's table, looking smaller and older and more tired than Sarah had ever seen him. When the judge's gavel came down, the gallery stood and applauded. But Sarah didn't feel triumphant. She felt hollowed out, like she'd been carrying something impossibly heavy for so long that now that it was gone, she didn't know how to stand without it. Lily took her hand. "We did it, Mom." "Yeah, baby, we did. Sophie can rest now." Sarah looked at Marcus. His face was wet. He wasn't trying to hide it. "Yeah," Sarah said, "she can." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. Questions came from every direction. Daniel stepped to the microphone. Sarah stood beside him, one hand in Lily's, the other holding Marcus's. "Today's verdict represents more than justice for the families affected by Meridian Securities practices," Daniel said. His voice was steady, strong. "It represents a fundamental shift in how we understand patient rights in this country. No one, regardless of their insurance status or financial situation, should ever have to beg for emergency medical care." More camera flashes. "Sophie's law will require all hospitals receiving federal funding to implement immediate access protocols for emergency cases. It will prohibit security contractors from making medical triage decisions. It will establish federal oversight of private security firms operating in healthcare facilities." He paused. "And it will save lives." A reporter called out, "Mrs. Morgan, do you have anything to say?" Sarah looked at Lily. Lily nodded. Sarah stepped to the microphone. "3 months ago, I was a single mother working 2 jobs and trying to keep my head above water. I got sick because I couldn't afford to see a doctor. My 6-year-old daughter had to call 911 by herself. And when we got to the hospital, they made us wait outside while paperwork got sorted." Her voice didn't shake. "If Marcus Sterling hadn't stopped that day, I don't know if I'd be standing here. But Sophie Sterling didn't get that chance. Janet Morrison didn't. Robert Walsh didn't. Michael Moore didn't." She looked directly at the cameras. "This law is named for Sophie, but it's for everyone. Every parent who's been too scared to go to the ER because they can't afford it. Every child who's had to grow up too fast because the system failed their family. Every person who's ever been made to feel like they didn't matter." Lily squeezed her hand. "You matter," Sarah said. "You all matter. And now, because of Sophie, that's the law." The questions continued, but Daniel guided them away through the crowd to a waiting car. Inside, Lily said quietly, "That was really good, Mom." "Think so?" "Yeah, Sophie would have liked it." Sarah pulled her daughter close. "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." 3 months after the verdict, Sarah opened the Morgan Foundation. It operated out of a small office in downtown Millbrook, staffed by Sarah, 2 part-time volunteers, and an accountant who worked pro bono 3 hours a week. The mission was simple emergency financial assistance for families facing medical crises. No applications, no bureaucracy, just help when people needed it most. The first call came on a Tuesday. A woman in Flagstaff. Her husband had collapsed at work. The ambulance took him to the nearest hospital, but their insurance had lapsed, and the ER was requiring a deposit before treatment. "How much?" Sarah asked. $2,000. "I don't have it. I've called everyone I know." Sarah looked at the foundation's bank account. They had $11,000, most of it from the settlement, some from donations that had come in after the trial. "What hospital?" The woman told her. Sarah called the hospital's billing department, gave them the foundation's credit card number. The payment went through in 3 minutes. She called the woman back. "It's taken care of. Your husband's being treated." The woman cried. Sarah let her. When she was done, Sarah said, "When things get better, if you can help someone else, that's all we ask." By the end of the first month, the foundation had helped 17 families. By the end of the third month, 43. Marcus helped when he could. He and his brothers ran fundraisers, bike rallies that brought in thousands, bar nights that brought in hundreds. Every dollar went to the foundation. And slowly, quietly, without anyone planning it exactly, Sarah and Marcus became something more than friends. It started small. coffee after foundation meetings, dinner when Lily was at a sleepover, long drives through the desert talking about Sophie and the life Marcus had lost and the life Sarah was trying to build. 6 months after the trial, he kissed her in the foundation office after everyone else had gone home. She kissed him back. "Is this okay?" he asked. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I want to find out." They took it slow, for Lily, for themselves, for the memory of Sophie that lived between them like a ghost neither wanted to disrespect. But Lily noticed. Of course she noticed. She was 9 now and 9-year-olds miss nothing. One night when Marcus was leaving after dinner, Lily said, "You really like my mom, don't you?" Marcus looked at her seriously. "I do. And she likes you." "I hope so." Lily thought about it. "If you got married, would I call you Dad?" Marcus's breath caught. "Only if you wanted to. I think I might want to." He knelt down to her level. "Lily, I need you to know something. If your mom and if we ever, I'm not trying to replace your dad. You have a dad." "He left," Lily said simply. "You stayed." Marcus didn't have words for that. Lily hugged him. "It's okay. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know." He hugged her back, held on maybe a little too long. When he stood up, Sarah was watching from the kitchen doorway. She'd heard all of it. They looked at each other across the living room. She smiled. He smiled back. And that was that. They got married on a Saturday in April in the cemetery where Sophie was buried. It was Lily's idea. "She should be there," Lily had said. "It's a family thing and she's family." So they stood at Sophie's grave with Daniel Cross officiating and Lily as the flower girl and Marcus's brothers as witnesses and said their vows in front of a headstone that read, "Beloved daughter, forever 12." Marcus cried through the whole thing. So did Sarah. Lily read a poem she'd written for Sophie about sisters who never met but knew each other anyway, about love that crosses impossible distances. When it was done, Lily placed a white rose on Sophie's grave and said quietly, "You're my sister now, officially." Marcus put his hand on her shoulder. Sarah stood on her other side. And for a moment, all of them together, they felt something that might have been Sophie saying, "Yes, officially I am." 3 years after the verdict, Lily Morgan stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. She was 9 years old, wearing a dress her mother had bought for the occasion. Her hair was in 2 neat braids. Behind her sat congresspeople and advocates and representatives from 23 patient rights organizations. In front of her was a microphone and a room full of cameras. She'd written her speech herself. Sarah had offered to help. Lily had politely declined. "My name is Lily Morgan," she said. Her voice was clear and steady. 3 years ago, my mom got sick and I had to call 911 by myself. I was 6 years old. The room was silent. When we got to the hospital, the guards wouldn't let my mom back in. She was on the ground outside and they said she had to wait for paperwork. I asked people to help and they walked past like we were invisible. She paused, looked at her notes, didn't need them. A man named Marcus Sterling stopped. He didn't know us. He didn't have to help. But he did, because 3 years before that, his daughter Sophie died outside the same hospital for the same reason. Cameras flashed. "This law isn't named after me. It's named after Sophie because she should still be here. And the only reason my mom is still here is because someone decided that one death was enough." Lily looked directly at the camera. "Sophie's law says that no hospital can delay emergency care because of paperwork or insurance or anything else. It says that sick people get help first and questions later. It says that children don't have to beg strangers to do the right thing." She folded her notes. Sophie was 12 years old when she died. She liked dinosaurs and science and probably would have grown up to be someone amazing. We'll never know. But because of her, 2,847 people are alive today who wouldn't have been. The number hung in the air. I think she'd like that. I think she'd be proud. Lily stepped back from the podium. The room exploded into applause. In the audience, Sarah was crying. Marcus had his arm around her. They'd been married for 2 years. Quiet ceremony, just family. Lily had walked her mother down the aisle. After the signing ceremony, they drove to Millbrook, to the cemetery on the east side of town. Sophie's grave was simple, a flat stone with her name and dates and one line, beloved daughter, forever 12. Someone had left flowers. Fresh ones. There were always fresh ones. Lily knelt down and placed a single white rose beside them. "Hi, Sophie," she said quietly. "We did it. Your law is real now." Sarah and Marcus stood a few feet back, giving Lily space. "She talks to her like she knew her," Sarah said softly. "In a way she did," Marcus said. "Sophie's been part of her story since the beginning. She's part of all our stories now." Marcus looked at his daughter's grave, at his wife, at Lily kneeling in the grass. "Dad," Lily called back to them. Not Marcus. Dad. She'd started calling him that a year ago, and every time she said it, it hit him in the chest like a physical thing. "Yeah, Lily. Can Sophie's sister bring her flowers sometimes too?" Marcus's breath caught. "You want to be her sister?" "I kind of already am. We just haven't made it official." Sarah looked at Marcus. He looked back. "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "Her sister can definitely bring flowers." Lily nodded, satisfied. She stood up and walked back to them. "Are we going to visit Mr. Cross?" she asked. "If you want to." "I want to. I made him something." She held up a drawing, crayon on construction paper. 3 stick figures labeled Mom, Dad, and me, and one smaller figure with wings labeled Sophie watching over us. Sarah's heart broke and healed in the same moment. "He's gonna love that," she said. They drove to Phoenix, to Daniel Cross's office above the Korean restaurant. He was at his desk when they arrived, surrounded by case files and coffee cups, and the organized chaos of a man who'd spent 71 years fighting and wasn't done yet. "Lily." He stood up when they walked in. "I watched your speech. It was perfect. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for being brave enough to let me." Lily handed him the drawing. He looked at it for a long time. "Can I keep this? That's why I made it." He taped it to the wall beside his desk, right next to a photo of a teenage girl with dark hair in his eyes. "That's Emma," he said, seeing Lily notice. "My granddaughter. The one who—" "Yes, she's in medical school now, going to be an ER doctor." "Sophie would have been in college too," Lily said, "if she'd gotten to grow up." "Yes," Daniel agreed quietly. "She would have." Lily looked at the photo, at the drawing, at Daniel. "I think they're all watching us," she said. "Sophie and Emma and all the people who got hurt. I think they want us to keep going." Daniel crouched down to her level. "What would you have us do?" "Make sure it doesn't happen anywhere, not just Arizona, everywhere." "That's a big job." "We're good at big jobs." Daniel smiled. Then he looked at Sarah and Marcus. "She's serious." "She's always serious," Sarah said. "Then I guess we have our work cut out for us." They left his office as the sun was setting. The Phoenix sky was doing that thing it did, turning the whole world orange and pink and gold. Lily sat in the back seat of Marcus's truck, looking out the window at the desert rolling past. "Mom." "Yeah, baby." "Do you think we made a difference?" Sarah turned around in her seat. "I know we did. A big difference. The biggest kind." Lily thought about that. "Good." She went back to looking out the window. And Sarah looked at Marcus, and he looked back, and they didn't need to say anything, because some things don't require words. They drove home to Millbrook, to the house they'd bought with the settlement money, to the quiet life they'd built from the wreckage of the worst day that became the turning point, to the family they'd become. That night, Lily lay in bed with her dinosaur book stacked beside her, and her mother's voice drifting in from the hallway where she was saying goodnight to Marcus. She thought about Sophie, about the girl she'd never met but who'd saved her life anyway, about all the people who'd stopped when they could have kept driving, about the fish tank in the hospital lobby and the orange fish that never stopped swimming in circles, and how she'd sat there counting seconds that felt like forever until forever ended. She thought about her mother's hand in hers, about Marcus's voice saying, "I won't let it happen again," about the moment she'd stopped being invisible. And she thought about the number, 2,847. 2,847 people who got help because she'd asked for it. That was worth something. That was worth everything. She closed her eyes and fell asleep and dreamed about dinosaurs with feathers and a girl with Marcus's eyes who was teaching her about cooperation and strength and how sometimes the smallest voices are the ones that change the world. In the dream, Sophie smiled and said, "You did good, little sister. You did real good." And Lily smiled back and said, "We all did." And somewhere in the darkness, the world kept turning. And Sophie's law kept saving lives. And a 6-year-old girl who'd refused to stop asking became a 9-year-old girl who'd never stop fighting. And that, in the end, was how things changed. Not with thunder, not with lightning, but with one small voice that said, "They won't let my mommy in." And one person who heard and stopped.